What is going on, you guys? Welcome, welcome to Making the Case for Your Lawyer Dreams. I'm your host and one and only Anthony Denmark, founder of Becoming JD, where our goal, of course, is to give you peace and blessings by helping you learn how to navigate your lawyer journey. I want you guys to be able to understand that everything that you're going through right now is meant and forced to make you grow and evolve into the lawyer that you're meant to be. Growth ain't easy, y'all. Growth takes time for you to be able to learn how to self-evaluate and be able to learn what you have to do to take the next step, to take the next journey in your journey to becoming an attorney. Of course, I'm holding it down in St. Louis, Missouri. It's not the place where I want to be. It's the place where God has me, because I don't like this place at all, y'all. Like zero. So let me know where it is, where you are viewing our session from. Fill up our chat box with it. And also, of course, on this space, I want you guys to make sure that you fill it up with questions. Because I know you got questions. I know you got challenges that you're going through right now on your lawyer journey. Either LSATs, law schools, bars, whatever. Fill our chat box up because we want to make sure that you come away from this session fed. And also with a clear mind in regards to what you have to do next. Because you are not alone on this journey. The reason why we created Becoming JD is for you. So you guys to learn how to navigate this space. And also learn from the mistakes of others. And also follow the blueprint of people who've been successful, who've been exactly where you are right now. We've been blessed to have a lot of amazing guests come on from all over the country. I'm really excited about the guests that we have coming on tonight. Sophia, sis keeps it 100. And of course, she's a law creator on TikTok with 82,000 followers, sharing her journey in law school diaries. Want you to make sure you follow and make sure also you tune in. So I'm going to go ahead and get her on. And I want you guys to stay tuned, get informed, and also sit back and relax. We're about to do the green light. Let's see. And also make sure you guys follow us, like, comment, subscribe to our YouTube channel on Instagram so you guys can follow along. But nevertheless, let me call it off John Legend because our guest is here. So what is going on, sis? How we doing?
Hi, I'm good. How are you? Very stressed for school, but that's how it goes.
I'm so happy for you to take some time to speak and chat with us. I love what you be doing with your law school diaries, keeping it all the way 100, asking questions that may make people uncomfortable, but also keeping it real. I was like, damn, I imagine if I was following her law school diaries and I was a professor in her class, I'd be like, damn, you really feeling like that way?
I am very brutally honest, which I've been told will make me a good lawyer in the future. So fingers crossed on that.
Absolutely. So those who may not know who you are, I want to give you the floor first to give your formal introduction. And of course, we're going to jump into some questions.
For sure. So hi, everyone. My name is Sophia Diocampo-Sumare. I am currently a 1L. And like Anthony mentioned, I am on TikTok basically documenting my law school journey, particularly how ridiculous the system of law is. I've been having a really good time. I love studying law, and also it's kind of weird being a first-gen woman of color in the legal field. So very happy to be here and share my experience, because I like to think I have a pretty unconventional path towards law school, but I am very grateful to be in the position that I'm in.
And I think the thing that's really beautiful, sis, is like, I think before so many of us entered into the legal field, we had like this cardboard cutout of what a lawyer's supposed to be.
Exactly.
And for so long, the reason why we didn't take that leap is because it's like, well, I don't fit into that cardboard cutout. And I love the vibes. You like, well, man, fuck that. Can I say that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm sure you've seen my videos.
I want to set the standard in regards to what I want to be and to define the type of lawyer that I want to be. And so I want to know, like, one of the first questions I always ask you guys, it sounds kind of corny, but it's also kind of true. Despite, our disdain with the system, we also love the system. And I want to know, like, sis, after coming from Colombia, after doing all the things you're doing, why in the heck are we trying to be a lawyer in the first place? I mean, this is just hard.
Yeah.
It's killing our mental health. It's killing our pockets. So why are we doing this? How are we getting this journey?
Yeah, for sure. I'll start off by saying that I always kind of knew that I wanted to go to law school as a kid. My mom and so I'm Filipino, and so as I'm sure some people know, Filipinos are always very feisty, and I used to get into fights with my parents. So my mom used to be like, oh, you might as well go to law school if you're going to argue like that. And I took that very seriously. But overall, I think that as a kid, as a child of immigrants, I really grew up believing that the United States of America was a system where fairness and justice was the most important thing. And so going to law school was sort of this dream where I would be able to represent that image. Of course, you get older and you start to realize, especially if you study political science, are just a person who is, frankly, if you're
With
not
a
a white
pulse.
person, yeah, if you're not a white person, you kind of come to realize very early on in your life that the system of fairness and justice isn't really something that is applicable to you. And so my dreams of going to law school, instead of representing what I thought the United States of America was supposed to be, became this thing of, okay, if that's not a possibility, how can I turn it into something real? And so I started realizing that going to law school would kind of be the ideal way to learn, number one, how those systems are created, and eventually with that knowledge, how can you tear it down to create something better? So that's why I decided to go to law school, because it's better to be inside of the belly of the beast so you know what's happening at least.
And I think full circle, what you begin to realize, it's like, do I want to be a person who just, complains about the injustices? And eventually, if I just do that, I'm just going to lose my voice and nothing's going to change. Or do I want to find a way to actually utilize that voice in my eye and lens where I see those injustices and
Exactly.
play a role in making things different?
Exactly. And I think the most important thing too is that I feel like a lot of times when people are in power and they try to tell you that, like, oh, that's not how the system works, it's so much easier to be able to look them in the eyes and tell them that, hey, I already went through this system. I already have been in law school, and I can tell you all of the reasons why I think it's a bad system that we should be relying on. So it becomes another tool in your little toolbox.
But I think the thing that's weird, right? You think about it like full circle. You remember those times when we were just be so angry and frustrated. We go through
Oh,
timelines and we're seeing other people have that easy life, or we believe that easy life, and we're
mhm.
like, "Well, damn, why is it? What's going on with me? I
Oh, yeah.
what did I not get the favor? What do some people say on Instagram now? Am I did I get on God's strongest soldier list? Where
Yeah,
But I think
exactly.
oftentimes it's because we had a front row seat to
Mm.
inequity and unfairness. That is what motivates us on our lawyer journeys, because we realize it's serving a purpose.
Yeah, exactly.
Because otherwise it's just a theory, and almost to a degree, otherwise it's more self-serving if
Mhm.
it's not serving a purpose. Now, one of the things that I think is crazy about law school and the whole lawyer journey is the LSAT. The LSAT is something that I tell people we got to go through it.
Yeah.
Everybody complains about it. It's a process. I want you to tell people your LSAT story, because, hey, everybody's LSAT story always is a come to Jesus moment where you just realize, man, I just got to face it.
Oh, absolutely. I will start off by saying that one of the things that I don't think enough people that are underrepresented in law school do is try to apply for pipeline programs before going into law school. I don't think that I would not have gotten into law school if it wasn't for my pipeline program. I had no money to be able to take LSAT courses. I did not know what I was doing. Unfortunately, the one that I am in is on hiatus just in regards to funding, but there are so many programs out there that will give you funding to take the LSAT, because the one thing I wish someone told me is that the LSAT is expensive. It is so incredibly expensive. And so if you're not a rich white person, it's going to be really hard to even try to study for it. I'll start off by saying, to be very frank, I did not get anything near a 170. I did not get anything near a 170. And I think that's a big myth that people talk about, is that you can't get into school if you don't get a 170 or above. That's not true. You still will do well in law school. The LSAT, I studied from June 2024 all the way up until December 2020.
Now, keep it a buck with them now, because, I tell people when we say studying, we have to let them know what that studying looks like. Because we got that cute, pretty studying, with the color coordinated highlighters and the tabs. And then we got what I call the hoodie studying, where it's just uncomfortable, tired,
Yeah.
fatigued. So let them know what type of studying you had to do to, take it to that next level.
Yeah, for sure. So I was working a full-time job as well as another side job while I was taking the LSAT, which some people will tell you is unheard of. I wouldn't recommend it, but also you kind of have to pay your bills, as did I. I very much had to pay my bills. So what a day in the life looked like for me is that I would get up around 8. I would go to work from 9 to 5, and then from 5 to 9, I would stay in my office and I would study. And that's all I would do. It was a very rigorous schedule. I would not really recommend it for most people, but at the same time, too, like most people have to still work while they're applying to law school.
Yeah, that's the
Most people still
reality.
have
Ain't it? Yeah.
responsibilities. Yeah. And I think the most important thing to understand is that when it comes to studying for the LSAT, even though I personally don't think the LSAT is an indicator of how well you'll do in law school, it's
That
a good
part.
intro. Yeah, absolutely. It's a good introduction as to how dedicated you need to be to your studies if you want something like a law degree. And so I'm really thankful for that. And so I would do 9 to 5, 5 to 9 on weekdays, and then Saturdays would be somewhat of a break. I would do review sessions, and then Sundays I would take practice tests.
Hold up. Practice test. Now,
Yeah.
a lot of folks be like, well, I did my problems, and let them know. Did we do our practice test under time conditions, or how was that rolling?
So I first started it, so I got lucky enough to have accommodations, and so I kept that very much in mind. Would highly recommend getting accommodations if you do have the opportunity to do so. Something you can talk about with your doctor or with your therapist, psychiatrist, whoever in between. If you can get those, definitely do. So, in regards to practice tests, the way that I ended up doing it is that I would take sections every single Sunday and I would take those time sections. What's one thing that people won't tell you enough of is that instead of repeating different sections over and over again, you want to drill the same answers until you understand why you got a question wrong. And so instead of taking fully timed practice tests every single Sunday, I'd take one section. I would see what I got wrong, see what I got right, and I would drill those questions that I got wrong.
I know one of the things I used to tell people, this is gonna be kind of funny. I said the reason why a lot of people struggle is because they try to treat the LSAT like a side piece. You got
Hmm.
LSAT like a main.
That's gonna be
Main
your
course. You
husband.
gotta know everything about it. Just like you know your main
Exactly.
squeeze, birthday, favorite food. You gotta know the LSAT like that.
Exactly.
And for you guys who may be struggling with the LSAT when it comes to accommodations, there are pathways for you to get accommodations and get the letter for accommodations and the testing for accommodations for free 99. There's something called rehabilitative services in every state in the United States. That's the pathway that I utilize to get my accommodations for the LSAT. And that's a pathway that's available to everybody out there, no matter what state you're in. If you're a taxpayer, you can go through rehabilitative services and say that you want the job of becoming a lawyer, and they will provide you with testing so you can go ahead and get that testing and provide it to the LSAT to get accommodations. And I think in most cases, the accommodations you get are the accommodations that you ask for. Have you heard of them?
Yeah, I can definitely
Also,
speak to that. Yeah.
and also one of the things I heard is, tell me what you think about this. Because one of my students, you're also able to get one of the accommodation requests you can make is to get the testing the test one that doesn't count removed.
Oh, I actually don't know much about that one.
The experimental, that's what it is. You're able to get the experimental section removed as well. I'll put a link in my story. I'll put the story. I can go to my stories. So you guys can check that out. So after the LSAT, right now we come to law school, and I think the craziest thing is just like the build up to it.
Yeah,
Paid your deposit. You're like, dang, okay, it's getting real.
it really
So
is.
I want you to tell me the first day when you roll up in that classroom, you done already seen Legally Blonde, you done seen all these shows about the law. Now it's just real. Professor done rolled up. You done found your seat. You're like, okay, where am I going to sit? Tell me about that whole experience.
So I was almost late to my first ever law school class because the bus was late, which I feel like really symbolizes my experience in law school so far. Had to run into my classroom, and I had, I think, one friend who now is one of my closest friends, but at the time we weren't very close. We had like maybe hung out once. And I had to take, I shit you not, I had to take a seat in the middle of everyone, right in the front. There's like, it's like a podium style, I think. There's like a
Yep.
podium right over here. I was seated right in front of the professor, and I had absolutely no choice but to sit in the front. It ended up being the best decision that I made simply because I didn't get distracted by everyone else, and I had face-to-face time with the professor constantly, so all the professors knew who I was. I also make a lot of facial expressions, which is also why people like me online. So I became very memorable in my classes because I have a very loud voice. I was sitting in the front all the time, and then my professors got to know who I was. So I had a lot of nerves, but it kind of just became this thing when I was in classes where I was like, holy shit, I'm here and I'm doing the damn thing. I made this video, I think probably my third day of classes, where I was like, nothing can really go wrong anymore because I'm in law school, which is the biggest thing ever.
And I think it's almost just like that surreal moment. It's just like, wow, this is the moment that I prayed for. This is the moment that
Exactly.
I fought for. This is the moment that I sacrificed so much to get to. And it's just like, I think a lot of times we go through that initial battle of self that I hate the first week of school because I feel like everybody's just on 10 talking about what was your LSAT score? What did
Yeah.
you do? And you're like, man, and then you start doubting yourself. And then people trying to campaign. I don't understand. I don't know how was it yours. I know my law school, they're campaigning in the first week.
Yes, they were. It was weird.
And I'm sitting here like, I don't know you. I don't know who I'm going to vote for. Whatever. Where's the free pizza? You guys will learn about that later.
So much pizza. Oh my God.
And so the thing I oftentimes tell people is, like at every step in our journey to becoming lawyers, I feel like we have moments where we're forced to level up, where we're hit straight in the face. And this is like, damn, I call it the old moment. When you realize like what's been working my whole life, oh, damn, this ain't about to work here. I got to change. So what class was it? And when did you realize that what worked in college or high school wasn't about to work and you had to make changes?
Yeah, for sure. I think I'm a very good example of you need to be able to take, like, not necessarily defeat, but take the things that you thought you were going to get and you didn't get in stride. To be frank, I remember one of the first grades that I ever got was in a legal writing course. And my entire life, I've been told that I'm a very good writer. I mean,
That part.
exactly. I've written articles, like I have stuff published, like my entire life I have been a writer. That has been in my personality. And the first grade that I ever got, I got a grade that I didn't think I was gonna get. I didn't fail. Well, I'm still here, which is nice. But it was so much drastically lower than I thought it was going to be, where I just completely misunderstood how to write in a legal format. And it was shocking to me because I was like, oh my God, here is something that I thought that I was incredibly good at. Here is something that I thought that I had my head wrapped around. And I had to change my entire narrative of like, okay, this is something that I thought I could do, but clearly I don't know what I'm doing. I need to ask for help and I need to figure out how to rework my own wheel. And so that's been a really big process of figuring out the difference between legal writing and regular writing too.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I think this kind of goes for law school in general. A lot of the times it feels very individual, which I think is true to an extent. But luckily for me, at American especially, once I started asking people and being honest about how much I was struggling, I got all of the resources that I needed. And the writing assignment that I had, I think maybe like 4 weeks after that, I ended up getting an A- on. And so it just went to show that, like, okay, I need to be okay with not doing as well as I wanted to so that I can become better, so that I can rework the wheel that, like, okay, just because I didn't do what I wanted to do now, what can I do to get there?
And I think the thing that's so amazing in that process is when you get that good grade. I mean, when I got my first A- in law school,
Yeah,
that was like, it's so crazy because you feel both excited and you realize, all right, I don't have any excuses anymore.
exactly.
And I tell people oftentimes, like, this journey is all about self accountability, where we have to really be able to, because we could BS everybody. And one thing about this law, you cannot BS this lawyer journey at all. And because you're really going to have to show the receipts. But when you realize that you could do it, it's like, okay, I'm being lazy. I have to hold myself accountable. And I think the crazy thing is after that is realize you start raising your own standard.
Mm-hmm.
And so, as a first gen, when we go to law school, we waste all this money on supplemental books that we don't. How much you end up wasting on books that you ain't using right now?
I don't want to say it. It's a little
I
scary.
know, right? Right?
You're not going to want to apply to law school afterwards.
I know, because the crazy thing is, you think about that near the end of the semester when them funds is kind of tight. You'd be like, dang, and then you'd be like, well, then if I try to resell them, I ain't gonna get nothing back for them.
Exactly. It's a bit of a disaster, but nonetheless.
But also, like, you begin to learn, all right, well, what I heard about study groups, what I heard about professors, what advice would you give to somebody who's entering into law school this fall to avoid some of the mistakes that that delayed you a little bit on your journey?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing when going into law school and the most important thing to remember is that everyone is going to learn differently.
Yeah.
Law students love to talk. It's why we go to law school in the first place. And so if you ask a law student their opinion, someone like me, they'll give you very detailed answers as to how they want to do something, how they think you should do something. But at the end of the day, law school is still a very individualized process. You know yourself best. I spent so much time trying to be able to fit inside of a box, especially during first semester, of how other people studied, how other people understood things, trying to do everything else that everyone else was doing because that's what I was told. And it wasn't until second semester where I started realizing that, like, well, the path that I want is not the path that these other people want. So what is the point of me trying to copy and mimic their footsteps? And it wasn't until I had that realization at the very beginning of this semester that I actually started really doing well, getting the opportunities I wanted, actually understanding the material, because I was focused on making sure that I was nurturing myself. So the way that I read cases is going to be different than the way that other people read cases. The way I studied for tests is going to be different than the way other people study for tests. It's important to be able to listen to people, but also take the advice that they have in stride, because at the end of the day, they're not you, you are you. You need to be able to take care of yourself, and you need to know how to best make sure that you are focused on what you know and how you learn.
Did y'all catch them gems? Did y'all catch them gems? Because I was like, can you say that again real quick for those people in the back who may not have heard that? Because, yo, like, I think a lot of people need to hear that.
Focus on yourself. It's so simple. It's easier said than done, but the biggest fan that you need to be is the fan for yourself. You can cheer on other people, but you can only cheer on other people as much as you cheer on yourself. Focus on you.
I think the thing that's also so surreal, right, is it's like trying to find that balance between, because I had to understand in order for me to do well, I just was not socially involved in a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I came to the events, and for you guys who aren't in law school, they will have events on campus, professionalism series. Eventually, you just go just to get the pizza, the food, so you can go ahead and go into a study room to go study. But I remember for me, one of the biggest challenges was having to accept that I'm just not going to be involved in a lot of the social stuff because I had to put all my energy into studying and being able to find that balance. Because I think initially we all think, man, study groups is the vibe.
Mm-hmm.
Nah, it wasn't for. If we in a study group and we all know the same stuff, and that means we all don't know the same stuff too, there's
Exactly.
no growth there. And I had to learn the importance of, if I really needed to get help, it had to be from the upper level students
Mm-hmm.
and the professors.
Exactly.
No, all love to the people in my cohort, but the upper level students who took the class and the professor who's administering the final. Outside of that, everything else is noise.
Exactly.
And so one of the things I wanted for you, because you created such an amazing platform,
Thank
how
you.
have you been able to navigate that space now knowing that people at your law school, i.e. professors, are looking at your ish?
I think that's actually the funniest part about it, is that one of the things that I realized about the legal field is that media is kind of a foreign concept. And so I didn't expect to do as well as it's doing right now. I will be frank. I've been doing media ever since 2020, from like the background and everything with organizations. But a big reason as to why I started my account was simply because I wanted a place to document how I was feeling about certain things, how I was perceiving this at this certain age. It's kind of a time capsule for myself. Even nowadays, I'll look back on like what I've been posting and everything, and I'll be like, oh my gosh, I was so worried about getting into law school, and here I am. So it's really nice looking back. But in regards to navigating it with professors and especially career-wise stuff, I think it's still definitely a work in progress. A lot of people in the legal field, and especially like people at my school that are higher up or that are counselors or professors, will have one or two ideas of it. The first one is kind of the bad one, which is that, what is this? And the judge doesn't want to see this, implying that I would want to work for a judge, which I do not want to do. It's like that very traditional idea of that, like, oh no, law is supposed to be hush hush. Law is supposed to be something that like is accessible to law students and legal professionals and professors. And then eventually over time you put out like a very edited version of what the law is. And that's what the public gets to see. And half the time, obviously, the public is not going to understand that. And then you have the other half of people that I've been speaking to. I had a conversation with my mentor at school about this yesterday, which is that like, this is a really cool thing.
Yeah.
Not enough people in the legal field are doing this. Let's figure out how you can start managing that and putting that in your resume. And, you know, it's still a back and forth. It's a balance. Sometimes people are weird about it. Other times people are supportive. At the end of the day, to me, it is also very much noise. I know why I have my platform, and it's because I know that there are a lot of people like me who are very confused and concerned and irritated at the material that we're learning. And so I very much have this philosophy of, as long as I stay true to why I am doing this, I am going to be fine.
And I think the thing that's so important about it is providing a lens for people who look like me and you to be able to know that there's a space for them in law school. I oftentimes, I don't know if this happened to you, but I know it definitely happened to me. Those random days when the law school admissions folks pull you to the side and ask you to take pictures to go
Yeah,
to the website. And I was like, at that particular juncture, I want to be more than just a diversity face.
exactly. Exactly.
Because I feel like oftentimes what I love is that the authenticity of your statements is like, this is my experience. And you know what? Even though I'm having these experiences, this is a place for you. And I feel like, the past 2 years, I would say, a lot of Black and brown aspiring lawyers have been able to may have second thoughts
Mm-hmm.
about going to law school. Affirmative action not being in place, DEI programs under assault, and people wondering, is there a place for me? Enrollment for law school admissions right now is up by like 43%,
Mm-hmm.
which means a lot of people are wondering, is there a space for me? And I want to know, what do you say to people out there who may have fears about law school, I don't think a lot of people have 170s. I really don't. But are having doubts about this journey, because it is hard.
Yeah.
You question yourself. There's dark days. There are lots of dark days.
Mm-hmm.
But what would you say to those people who are questioning if this is for them because they don't see their self in what law schools are projecting right now?
Yeah, for sure. I think the first thing to acknowledge, because I have actually had so many conversations like that, both in my personal life, through my social media, the first thing to understand is that those fears are incredibly valid. I actually graduated early from undergrad in 2022, and it took me 2 years to be okay with the fact that I wanted to apply to law school, because the following year was when the affirmative action case came out.
Right.
I knew that it was going to be significantly harder for someone like me to be able to get into the schools and the programs that I wanted to, because of who I am as a person. I'm very open and honest and blunt about my views. And a lot of the times when it comes to more traditional schools and traditional fields, it's not really something that's looked upon in the greatest light. And so I think the first thing is that, if someone like you or me are applying to law school, is to understand that those fears are valid. It is so incredibly fair to take the time to consider whether or not you want to be put in a space that not only doesn't represent you, but has a history of being violent towards groups like ours. It's tough. I'm not going to lie about that. I haven't lied about it, and I will continue to talk about how it can be a very, very shitty experience.
Yeah.
But on the second half of things is that I fully believe that fear and underrepresentation should never be a reason as to why you stop doing something. I grew up in a place where I was the only Filipino person. I am currently the only Filipino person in my entire section of 90 students. And if anything, I've started to turn that into a strength and not something that makes me different in a bad way, but makes me different because of the unique perspective I hold. I
Absolutely.
my social media account is such a perfect example of that, simply because, you know, a lot of the times I say the things that a lot of people are thinking or haven't had the
You
words
do.
or jokes, frankly, to be able to express. And in being in law school and having conversations with professors that have clerked at the Supreme Court, professors that have been partners at the biggest law firm in my life, have told me, which is that my experience is important. Having diversity in a legal education is important. And at the end of the day, it's what ends up changing laws in the first place. I was doing my constitutional law reading before this, and you know, you read all about the 14th Amendment, you read about pre-civil rights eras, and most Supreme Court judges didn't view Black or brown people as people, period. And
Right.
so for someone like me and someone like you to be able to get a legal education is the greatest gift, and to be petty, the greatest fuck you to people.
I love it. Because I'll tell you guys out there, man, con law is probably the most uncomfortable class
Yes.
when, especially for Black and brown students. And
Period.
it is, and you know what, almost to a degree, it's an uncomfortable class for everybody. When, even to the point in regards to when they ask you to make arguments or ask you to read certain texts, it is very uncomfortable. But nevertheless, one of the things that's amazing about it is it lets us know how far we've come.
Exactly.
And I think that's something that's very, very empowering. And one of the things I always love talking about too is one of the sayings I always say is there are 197 law schools. All we need is one yes. Law schools are not one size fits all. Now, when it came for you making the decisions about law school, you end up deciding to go to American. But what should law student or aspiring lawyers look for when they're trying to find schools? Because
For sure.
you know, it's not about rankings. It really, I mean, if you want a big law job, maybe.
Yeah.
But what should they look for? Because I think, let's be honest, I know in this process, I just picked the school that gave me the most money.
Yeah.
And I got lucky that they also offered me other resources. But to those out there in that process, what advice would you give to them?
Yeah, for sure. I think the first thing is that keep in mind the rankings, but also understand that they aren't going to be the most important thing at the end of the day. There's like this big joke where it's, especially like in the DC area, where it's like you can kind of tell who was able to slide into law school and didn't need to work hard. I will leave it at that. But I think the most important thing to understand when it comes to choosing which school you want to go to is looking to the people that have left that school and the types of careers that they wanted. A big reason as to why I ended up deciding to go to American University instead of my other options was because they, number one, were founded by women. It was actually the first law school founded by women, and originally was a law student or a law school that only accepted women. And so to me, that was really important as a femme person. And then they also founded the Marshall Brennan Constitutional Literacy Project, which is this project that started in American University, and they go out into DMV area schools and teach high school students about constitutional law and why it is important. And I had a professor, a teacher and a person who was a professor at the local university in my area who introduced me to the idea of law. And if it wasn't for her, I don't think that I would have applied to law school. I don't think that I would have thought about it as intensely. And so I know the importance of having a mentor and a teacher to tell you about law. I can only imagine what it would be like for a classroom of kids to have that important environment. And so that's why I ended up choosing American, because it just had all of these experiences and programs that I wanted. And I really liked the students. They were nice, they were kind, and law was not their life, which is a very big important thing for me. As much as I love talking about the law, there are also other aspects of my life that are really important. And the environment has ended up being such a blessing in my life.
And so I hope you guys are able to catch the tea from that. Like when it comes to picking a school, oftentimes I used to not really be a believer of vibes and all that type of stuff. But realistically now, looking back on it, the vibes, you have to be able to feel the vibe. Now, did you go visit American before you went there?
I did. I got very lucky. American has this thing where our law school library is actually open to the public if you send like an email. And so I got to sit inside of the library, watch the law students do their stuff. I also was working remotely that day too, so I ended up just like working there for 3 hours. And that was really important to me because most law school libraries in the country are not open to the public, which I think is stupid because it's a library. but Americans was, and that really said a lot to me about the message. And for me, for someone like me where accessibility is going to be a big thing in my career, it was important that I went to a school that reflected those values. And so when you choose which school you decide to go to when you get in, you have to think about, okay, what does this school say about me and the person that I want to become?
And I think full circle moment is realizing it's like, I need to make sure that I have a school that fits my needs.
Exactly.
School doesn't fit my needs, that means I'm not going to be able to perform my best. And I
Mm-hmm.
things you talked about earlier that I thought was very important. You talked about pipeline programs. I
Yes.
put a link in my bio for that, but there are like 55 pipeline programs all over the country,
Mm-hmm.
all designed, you guys, to help remove the burden of the LSAT and also provide you with, I think they give waivers and stuff to apply into law school too. Because law school ain't cheap. And you know what, man? One thing we know, it's consistent as taxes. We know that law school is going to be more than it was the next year, y'all. So finding ways to be able to reduce that is something that you want to make sure that you're trying to do. You could tell us, though, what was the pipeline program that you did do, even though it's on pause right now?
Yeah. It was the pre-pro bono program in New York City. It's essentially this program that focuses on providing underrepresented students that want to apply to law school areas and avenues to get into schools and focus then on public interest. And so that was my top program that I really wanted to get into, and then I ended up getting in, and it was really wonderful. The resources that they provided us specifically were LSAT mentoring, because one of the founders and like helpers of the program is actually the Seven Sage founder. He's not super
Oh, wow. That's
advanced.
awesome.
He provided us free Seven Sage access for the entire year. And then I got free sessions from an individual tutor during and then after for a little while applying for law school with the LSAT. And then the other thing that I got was that I had a really wonderful community while applying to law school. I had this group of girls that was all very different people, but also all very focused on the same thing, which is that we wanted to find ways to make law more equitable and accessible. And I was really thankful that I got to meet them, because I don't think that I would have been able to do it without them. I'm very thankful for them and the journey that I went while doing that. And their experiences really solidified the fact that I wanted to go to law school. And so I think that the one thing that underrepresented peoples that are applying to law school don't do enough of is applying to those programs, because they really do change your life and they give you a support system that you may not have known that you needed until you got there.
And I know one of the things I try to do in our Instagram, I always try to make posts of these programs. But there's so many amazing ones out there for you guys. All you got to do is go to Google, type in law school pathway programs, and they'll give you an entire list of them. And they're all over the country. One of the things I tell people is, you tell me what you think about it. I say, listen, on this journey, if you are alone, it's because you choose to be alone.
Exactly.
And if you,
Very much so.
then that's a form of self-sabotage, because
Mm-hmm.
there are so many programs, resources, law schools, mentors, judges, lawyers. Like you said, we like to talk, who are literally out there trying to help you. And we really want to see you win. And the reason why we have platforms like this is so we want you guys to avoid the mistakes that we made. And we also want you to see the joy in this process. Now, of course, we give law schools the real about the professors and stuff. But tell us just about some of your great experiences that you've had in law school thus far, because let's be honest, even though it's definitely trials, but it's also a lot of blessings too.
Yeah. I think overall, there are definitely three things in particular that I'm thinking of. Number one, the professors that I've gotten to meet have really changed my perspective on everything. American has a really wonderful selection of professors, and so I have learned that some of them are legal celebrities, and I've been lucky enough to call them my professors and people that I can speak to on a daily basis and go bother and tell them about what I've been learning in classes. And so I think that's the main thing, which is that you get to learn from the best of the best. A professor is a professor because they know what they're doing, and now they want to be able to give back to students that look like them, that want to learn like them. And so I think that's the biggest thing, which is at the end of the day, if you go to law student, you're kind of a nerd. And so the professors are going to be even bigger nerds than you are. And so it's nice to be able to share that joy of learning about history, learning about how rules are made, sometimes shitting on them, etc., that kind of thing. I think the second thing is definitely the community that you make.
Yeah.
Law school, I will say this is kind of like a double-edged sword. It's competitive. It is always going to be competitive no matter where you go. That's something that I would love to see the legal field change in the next couple of years. I don't think it's going to that fast. But when you end up finding the people that truly do see you, that truly do support you, and understand what you want to do with your legal degree, they will uplift you so much and also help you get to the places that you want to be at. There's this saying I remember that they talked about at orientation for first generation students, which is life goes on and so does law school. And
Mm.
that was something for me personally with like, you always have something happening. You will always have something that happens. Like I've heard of people whose family members have died. You can get really sick, etc. All those kinds of things. As a person who went through a lot of personal strife, both in this semester and last semester, I wouldn't have been able to make it out if it wasn't for my community at law school. And so I'm internally grateful for that. And also, they're some of the smartest people I'll ever meet. I love hearing them talk. And that's
I think, and, because one thing I oftentimes say is just like law school is a very humbling process.
yeah.
You begin to realize, yes, there are people way smarter than you, but
Oh,
at the same
yeah,
time, you have a reality of saying, but I'm just as capable. Do I
exactly.
work harder? Yeah, I can work harder. And it really forces you to level up. And I think what's amazing, I'm sure you do this sometime looking at your social media, is you're able to see from your posts how much you've grown and evolved
Oh, yeah.
in a year, in a time before law school to the time while you're almost finishing up your first year. And it's just surreal. And you're writing too. That's the crazy
Exactly.
part.
It's really wonderful. And I think that's the main thing about law school, which is that I'm seeing myself go through transformations that I never thought were possible. I'm seeing myself get through obstacles and hoops that, number one, I would never imagine those obstacles or hoops to begin with. And then I'm still making it over. I mean, my social media platform is just one of the things that I am proud of at law school. I'm learning how to read these very intense cases. I'm able to have conversations with impressive law clerks, professors, judges, because every single day that I'm in law school and every day that it humbles me, where I'm like, okay, I'm not the smartest person in the room, the next question now becomes, what can I do to get closer to the person that is the smartest? Because I think the best part about law school and realizing that sometimes you're going to be kind of stupid is that that means you have so much to learn. And as a person who is first generation, whose parents did not get their degrees from the United States, and I am the only person in my family in the United States, it's such a gift. I'm so grateful for it. And sometimes I forget about it, I won't lie. But there are moments, especially, like this, like going into classes where I am just so grateful to be where I am. And I know that this experience is going to uplift me higher than I've ever been before. And I just can't even imagine it yet.
I mean, it's just so surreal to just think about, like, for example, because you're in this boat now where you're preparing, where you're going through interviews for clerkships and internships. And it's just like taking a second back and realizing, like, wow, this is real.
Exactly.
And also realizing, but I deserve this and I've earned this. And I think what I love so much about your platform is you're now letting people see that you could be your own authentic self and you could still get everything that you want.
Exactly. I think that, yeah, I think that's also a very important thing, which is that a lot of people, I think, automatically assume because I have a social media platform, I am going to be automatically barred from a lot of things. If anything, it's gotten me so many opportunities. I don't want to take a very traditional career in law. I've always been very aware of that. And so it made a lot of sense for me to create a platform where I talked about how I didn't like the traditionalness of law, where I talked about how I don't like the history of it. And if anything, I think the most important thing in law school is that you have to learn how to be open and honest in every way, shape, or form, whether it's with yourself or, for me, on social media.
And I think the thing is, I don't know, you said something that actually made me think. I was like, you know what though? There's so little representation, even we see like on the big screen about people who look like me and you in law school.
Mm-hmm.
Almost to a degree where it's like we're absent there. But so we're forced to have these cookie cutter images because we don't see us on Netflix or on other series. We don't see us in law school in the trenches. We see us afterwards. And so oftentimes that trench part, I think oftentimes it's the most important part that oftentimes is missing. Because I remember when I went to law school, I was watching Legally Blonde. It was another movie from the 1980s at Harvard.
It's
I never think I ever watched a show where I saw law students who look like me and you struggling and growing and evolving. But the
exactly.
thing about social media now, you and I think this is other gentleman I follow, Little Yeezy, you guys have brought a new perspective to law students to the point where it's like I can be present here and I can be my authentic self. I can be who I am and I can still navigate this space. Now, one of the things that I also always love to do and end with is this. All right, we're about to take them to church. You ready? All right, so think about it, right? Because you got that reality when you came back to school, when you was like, hold on, where homeboy at? Where your class got smaller? People got put on probation. People got dismissed. And
Yep.
it's like that, oh, okay. But it also brought up that reality of law school and this journey, man. This journey is hard.
Yeah.
Highs and there's lows. And we experience all of them at some particular point to some degree. And I know that there's somebody on here who either one may have been a student that got dismissed or may have been placed on academic probation, which is scary as hell,
Yeah.
or may have been rejected from law school. We all been rejected, or is retaking the LSAT, or they're sitting for the bar again. And I always love to give you guys the floor to provide a word of encouragement because we all need it sometime. And I just want to see what words you have to share with them.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing is that, especially for someone like me, if you look at my resume, I've done some really cool things. You see my platform, you see that I'm in law school. I have had, for every success that I've had, and I think my mom told me about this too. For every success that I've had, I have always spectacularly failed the first time. And if I didn't spectacularly fail the first time, I spectacularly failed the second time as well. I have been rejected over and over and over and over again. And sometimes you'll have those moments where you get that rejection and you're like, oh my God, am I supposed to be doing this? Am I supposed to be trying? But then you keep going and you get better, you get smarter, you get more humble. And for me, that was law school. When I got into law school, I was like, oh my gosh. And, I got my fair share of rejections. But when I got into American, when I went to the school and when I learned about the programs and the lives that I could change with my law degree, it became this moment of clarity where I was like, oh, this is where I'm meant to be. Failure to me does not mean rejection. It just
Hold on,
means
say that one more time.
failure to me does not mean rejection. It means redirection. And so just because you don't get what you thought you were going to get at first, it doesn't mean you should stop trying. It just means that you got to think better, think smarter, work harder, and understand that you're going to end up where you meant to end up as long as you are true to yourself and the reasons that you're doing all of this for.
I mean, you got Ileana clapping. I want to snap my fingers. She said, failure is not rejection, it's redirection. And that's just beautiful. So, sis, I want to thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Time for your studying because I know the grind is always real. I want you to also lastly tell people where they can follow you on TikTok and Instagram because we brought
Yeah.
it down.
So it's gonna be on this account, Kuya Ate Fia. It's a mixture of Kuya and Ate, which is in my first language, which is Tagalog, which means older sibling. And then it's Kuya underscore Fia on TikTok. Another thing that I also will be shouting out is that I will be working on something very special with the Office of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging at the New York City Bar Association.
Love it.
So definitely check that out. I will be posting it on my story. I will be sending it to you. But overall, I'm so happy I got to have this conversation and I'm very thankful.
Absolutely, you guys. And again, thank you. Make sure you follow her. I'm going to be sharing her in my stories like I always do. At the end of the day, you guys remember that there's a place for you in law school. Point blank, period. Understand that you had that dream for a reason, and that dream was for you to manifest it. You are not alone. You have resources. You can holler at her. You can holler at me. Please understand that you are not on this journey alone. We're here to help you. We're praying for you. We're rooting for you. Until next time, same time, Wednesday, 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. Continue to fight for your lawyer dreams. Peace and blessings. Take care. Thank you, sis.